So I decided to do something a little bit different today, and it's on and off raining. So like I don't know, like pouring, but then suddenly stops. So I'm not sure if you guys would hear some rain sounds, but it's highly possible. So let's wait. This kind of weather to crawl with a good book, as Phyllis from the office said. And I prepared a good book for you guys, of course. But first, I wanted to try some tapping sounds because why not, right? And because I had a birthday not so long ago, like 2 days ago, my dear friends, my sweet, sweet friends, gifted me flowers. And I remember being that girl that just like, flowers. Why flowers? No, they're gonna die slowly in a vase. And now kinda can resist. Kinda can resist the girlhood. So I'm really happy about the flowers. Really happy seeing them, making photos of them. So just accepted this part of me. And I thought that they could make interesting sounds because they're kind of flustering, and they also look good in the frame. So, but it's like a raw idea, so maybe they're not that audible. Maybe they're not that audible. I'm not sure. So, really concentrating because everything, like the setup that I made here is fragile, so I'm concentrated in order not to, not to drop anything or something. And of course, because the weather is quite chilly today, not very, warm, because we have winter and it's okay for the winter. So I made myself a hot water bag, this dude, and it's also rubby one. Again, forgive me if anything falls. This whole setup is really fragile, but there is a, like, this side, and it's really rubby. I also always bring it to models shootings or something. If you want to know more about this, you can follow me on Instagram, but not encouraging that because we're here against addictive social media platforms. But anyways, I post a lot about that, and because it's winter and photo studios are not really warmed up and we are like shooting most of the time summer collections, it's must like hot water bag because I'm freezing. And some of my friends, I thought it would be suitable because it's also pink, and as you might have noticed, today's theme of the video is a pink color. perfume, and I don't know, I thought it can make good sounds. Yeah, it's a really nice one. Again, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to have such sweet friends. Anyways, the book that I wanted to read today, it's actually not a full book, not a fiction book. It's like, first of all, of course, it's an old book because I love old books, you know. And it looks like one, right? So it looks pretty old and rusty, actually. I don't know what happened to this book, but it feels like something terrible. Anyways, for me it's the best. The best of. So, and it's a non-fiction book, actually like some kind of philology, analysis of poetry of Yeats. Know if I can make it focus on it. Anyways, from Cambridge University, and I'm not sure if I can read the surname of the author, but because it's like Louis something, but if you want, you can Google it yourself. And I loved the preface because it's more like overall philosophy, overall understanding of poetry, and I thought that could be quite poetic for you guys to also get familiar with it. Yeah. So anyways, but the book itself is also worth checking out, but again, for those who love non-fiction, as I do, I actually miss non-fiction a lot, because fiction is also cool, but non-fiction kinda gives my brain a workout. And because here there are not so many books in English, it's a little bit harder to find something that is non-fiction, because most of the time it's like world's classic books, for example Little Women, or I don't know, Lord of the Flies that I'm reading right now, and it's also cool, but it's more like entertaining, and for me, like, it's a new vocabulary, of course, but it's more like entertaining books and non-fiction. Oh my god, the setting is great, but I don't know if the sounds, like if my microphone catches the street sounds. I hope not. Anyways, it's I forgot where the conversation flows somewhere, and I forget, but it's okay. So let's begin with the preface. I'll put my cup somewhere here, I guess. Preface. It's only a couple of pages, but we do need like an hour-long video, right? Or if you need, please let me know the not scary but entertaining and not so complicated story, please. So there is not, to my knowledge, nor do I think there can be any satisfactory definition of the relationship of poetry to life. I'm convinced, however, that there is such a relationship and it is of primary importance, I'm also convinced that a poem is a thing in itself, a self-contained organism, a creation. I might almost say saving the presence of philosophers, an absolute. When Dr. Johnson demanded that the products of wit should be both natural and new, he was recognizing these two characteristics of a poem, that it corresponds in some indefinable way to life, and that it is at the same time an individual, a brand new thing. The literary critic, being unable to assess the inhoud, inevitably concerns himself with poetry as correspondence. Such criticism can be valuable, but it never rises above what Aristotle called bastard reasoning. I'm actually not familiar with that, but okay. I think it's a little bit maybe self-explanatory, like name calling or something. But anyways, if you are familiar with this bastard reasoning, please drop a comment. When we talk about the value of anything, we tend to suppose a gulf between this abstracted value and the thing which is valuable. This seems to me wrong. When a rose hates me, in the sense, it is the rose that hates me and not some value separable from the rose. Idealist philosophers, in talking about their absolutes and universals, have made them vulnerable to by hypnotizing them, whereas the only invulnerable universal is one that is incarnate. We still tend to think that because a thing is in time, its value can only be explained by an abstraction from the thing of some supposedly timeless qualities. This is to explain the thing away. I like this phrasing, by the way. This is to explain the thing away. It's like the curse of Western philosophy to conceptualize and to rationalize until the thing itself doesn't have any essence, any vital energy anymore. So, that a rose withers is no disproof of the rose, which remains an absolute, its value inseparable from its existence, for existence is still existence whether the tense of past or future. A poem which we must never forget is a physical organism, is in the same category. For this reason, all literary critics are falsifiers, in that they try to disintegrate the value or essence of a poem from the poem itself. They peel away the onion. Thus, in my book, Modern Poetry, I overstress the half-truth that poetry is about something, is communication. So it is, but it is also a separated self. In the same way, a living animal is an individual, although it is on the one hand, conditioned by heredity, an environment, the laws of nature in general, and on the other hand, has a function outside itself, is a link in a chain. In modern poetry, I also denied that the poet is properly a mystic, and argued that the poetic is a normal human activity. It still holds that the poet is a distinct species from the mystic, but I should like to correct the emphasis here, although I shall have occasion to repeat these points later. Mysticism, in the narrow sense, implies a specific experience which is foreign to most poets. towards, and most men. But on the other hand, it represents an instinct, which is a human sine qua non. Both the poet and the ordinary man are mystics, incidentally, and there is a mystical sanction or motivation for all their activities, which are not purely utilitarian. Possibly, therefore, for all their activities, as it is doubtful whether anyone does anything purely for utility. Life, let alone art, cannot be assessed purely in terms of utility. Food, for example, is useful for life, but what is life useful for? To both questions of pleasure and the questions of value. The utilitarian has no answer. The faith in the value of living is a mystical faith. The pleasure in bathing or dancing, in color or shape, is a mystical experience. If non-utilitarian activity is abnormal, then all men are abnormal. It was because I did not think of men as essentially utilitarian that I maintain that poetry is a normal activity, that the poet is a specialist in something which everyone practices. I thought that is quite an interesting idea in terms of usefulness, right? So, and that actually fits a lot of our topics about achieving and this kind of modern mindset of being productive all of the time and losing this essence and this energy of connecting with oneself. And when you don't feed, in my experience at least, when you don't feed this inner chaos, inner presence with supposedly useless stuff, like doing just because you enjoy doing this, and by enjoy I mean not dopamine wise, but more like maybe something that is fulfilling, right? When you don't do this stuff just for fun, right? For example, I don't know, creativity, as we talked about. Life begins to lose colors, and one begins to dissociate with oneself, and this is where people are having this existential thoughts of not knowing who they are. Okay, and that's existential crisis, of course. That's a very broad topic, but I mean, the idea is pretty simple and plain and adorable, that things are not supposed to have reason or final goal. It's good when they have, but essentially just writing, knitting, dancing, drawing, any kind of activity that one likes doesn't supposed to have a goal. So, and there is a few paragraphs left, and I will read them till the end. In writing about Yeats and his poetry, I have inevitably concerned myself with facts, with what Yeats was writing about, with the life and ideas from which his poetry came. These facts provide certain clues in his poetry, but the poetry cannot be summed up in them. I would repeat that a poem is about something, but that a poem also is, the critic being impotent to convey this thinghood of a poem. No one need expect that critical discussion of poetic values can ever convey the value of the poem itself, for every poem is unique and its value inseparable from its existence. The background of the poem, its origin, its purpose, its ingredients can be analyzed and formulated, but the poem itself can be only experienced. All that the critic can do is lay stepping stones over the river, stones which are better forgotten once the reader has reached a position where he is not in touch with the subject of criticism. I'm kind of concerned if it's like really Yeats, or I'm just... When I bought this book, I've never heard of this gentleman, but I was curious to know, and now I'm not sure. What a fool I would be if I read his name incorrectly. But it's okay. I can be fooled. I am good with that. Anyways, let me know stories. Maybe I thought maybe fairy tales could be interesting. And I've also tried different kind of whispers this time. And like a lot of experiments in this video. So let me know how you liked it. If you liked it, you can just say, no dude, please stop. And see you in the next one.